Hey everybody, it's Galmanex, and welcome back to another premiere draft of Aetherdrift. Without further ado, let's get into the pack one, pick one. A pretty sweet pack here. We have some really efficient removal like Lightning Strike and Grim Bauble that are certainly competing for the pack one, pick one slot, but I have been pretty impressed by any Start Your Engines cards that you can play on turn one. Getting that max speed mechanic rolling early in the game, make sure that every point of damage you're doing for the rest of the game, at least your one per turn point of damage, is going to be increasing your speed, and it makes these cards a lot more consistent for any of the late game max speed cards that have really good abilities. So I don't mind taking the Gas Guzzler pack one, pick one here as one of those really cheap, rare start your engines cards. For pick two, we've got two main options. We can take the Wreckage Wickerfolk as the best black spell to just stick to our pack one, pick one here. It also plays really well with it. Any kind of start your engines deck definitely wants some good flying creatures because they're great at getting that damage in and raising your maximum speed. But there is a very powerful card it's competing with, which is Veteran Beast Rider. I don't know if I have beaten this card before. I played against it a lot in the early access, and every time it hit the board, it was just such a nightmare. It gives like your entire board vigilance basically, and it's an overstated creature for the mana cost, being a 3 mana 3/4, and it has an Anthem effect slapped on that's really hard to play around because you get to attack in with your whole board, and it's like, well, now your opponent's blocks are pretty bad if you ever activate it, which gets them to block less, and then you don't even have to actually activate it. You're just getting that damage in for free. Beast Rider's just been insanely impressive to me, so I'm interested in going off color for it. When we're this early in the draft, we're certainly not married to black yet. Pick three is kind of a similar pick. We have the Embalmed Ascendant and the Greenbelt Guardian. I think both of these are really nice. So 2 mana 2/2 that turns into a 4 mana 5/5 in the late game, and it can give any of your creatures trample, which helps push damage through. But there's also Embalmed Ascendant, which is very impressive. Again, for the black-white Start Your Engines deck, if we want to go the Gas Guzzler route here, being a 1/2 and a 2/2 no matter what, but if you reach max speed, you also drain your opponent for some life whenever something dies. But I feel like Beast Rider is actually the more impressive card we've drafted so far, so I'd rather lean towards that with Greenbelt Guardian. I think those two are pretty comparable in power level. For pick four, now we get to take some more green cards because it's just a pretty busted color in this format where the commons like Hazard the Dunes are just pretty insane. Although Wreckage Wickerfolk is honestly probably pretty close, but again, I think getting more towards that green-white deck is going to be a better spot to be. Fang Druid Summoner, I don't think I've played with or against this yet, but it's theoretically pretty fun. We just need a couple of those creatures with no abilities, so just take some of the 2 mana 3/2s, and this card becomes really good. 4 mana for a 2/4 reach and a 3/2. That's a really good rate. I'll take that over Hazard of the Dunes here. For pick five, speak of the devil, and he shall appear. The Gibberic Omnivore is the kind of card we want with the Fang Druid Summoner to guarantee it has something to search for. Ideally, if we're really lucky, we can play this with the 2 mana 3/3 in white and the 5 mana 9/7 in green, but those are all uncommons. There's no guarantee we can pick them up. I really want to make sure I have at least 2 vanilla creatures to go with this card. So I'm going to take the Omnivore pretty highly here. I'm taking it over Potholmel, which I probably wouldn't usually do because this is pretty good even if you don't care about graveyard synergies, just as a way to make sure you keep drawing lands and working your way up the mana curve. But in this specific scenario where we have the Fang Druid Summoner, I want to make sure that card's going to be doing something. Pick six, now we have a Beast Rider Vanguard. That's a solid 2-drop with a good mana sink ability. If you run out of stuff to do, it can draw some more creatures off the top of your deck in the late game. But I don't mind the Ride's End here to actually have some removal nice and early. That was our biggest issue in our last draft, was kind of a lack of removal. So being potentially heading towards green-white here, we'll take the solid removal spell highly. Pick seven, that Venom Sack-Lagac, cheap little Death Toucher. Roadside Assistance. Just never that big of a fan of auras, but this technically gives you a creature every time to try to make up for it, but still rather just take the Venom Sack-Lagac. Filler 2-drop. Pick 8, now we've got a Beast Rider Vanguard. I can take that now. This is not going to be a tune-up deck. Green doesn't have a lot of like big cycling artifacts in it. Golgari does, green-black, but tune-up you want to have tons of big vehicles and artifact creatures you can put in your graveyard early, ideally by cycling them. So I think like blue, white, and black, white are the good color pairs for that. Pick 9, if we end up super low on removal, we could play a filler scrap compactor. I'd really rather not do that, but I also would rather not play the Elycrian Jaguar. It's just kind of filler up at 5 mana. Pick 10, Wreckage Wickerfolk. That is real late. I mean, I think these were like the only 2 black cards in the pack. We might end up having to just go green-black just because it's more open here. Pick 11. This pack's pretty bad. Thopterist is by far the best card. 4 mana, 3/2, plus a 1/1 flyer. It's great to get multiple bodies off the one spell, as always. Pick 12, nothing much here. I guess Broodheart Engine has some decent synergies with really big cycling creatures and vehicles if we end up in Golgari. Pick 13, Aether Jacket. Insanely filler, but if whatever we end up in doesn't quite make playables, we can throw it in there. We might be Golgari here, honestly. Like, I was probably understating Broodheart Engine a little bit. It's pretty efficient. Also fills the graveyard for your other stuff. Yeah, got to take a bunch of artifact creatures now to go with Demonic Junker. But that's like a great card to surveil into your grave with Broodheart Engine and then reanimate. All right, Golgari Junk again. I feel like I've played a lot of Golgari, but that's been mostly sealed. So now we can like really draft around it and make sure we get a bunch of artifacts to go with the Junker. Spinout's also good here. Not much in green. Green-white has the Legoran, but again, I have not been particularly impressed by just shoving a bunch of mounts and vehicles in your deck. Green-white's probably the best at it because mounts, it's fine to have a bunch of mounts in your deck because they're just creatures straight up already, but having a bunch of vehicles in your deck has been pretty awkward. So another Broodheart Engine. Judging by last pack, I think we should expect this to wheel because this was like pick 13 or something. So I think we take like a Wickerfolk here to go with the Gas Guzzler, get the engines going quick. Plus, it's another artifact for Demonic Junker's Affinity. I've got a lot of 2-drops right now. So, like, mana-wise, I'm not doing bad on having late game plays. But I feel like I like the Wickerfolk here. Another Broodheart Engine would make the reanimation package really consistent, but I think, again, with how late we got the other one, we can probably get that to come back around. And I don't have anything to reanimate yet. Ooh, Crypt Caller Chariot. I don't think this actually works in Golgari, sadly. You really got to be blue-black or red-black for this. You need some way to like discard a card and draw a card every turn, which Golgari just doesn't have. We don't have any way to make ourselves discard a card for any reason. Just in this color pair at all in the format. That's depressing because this card is really strong with, there's like a red common that lets you discard a card and draw a card every single turn. That's like the really good combo with it in Rakdos, but I think we're more in the market for some filler removal like a Hellish Sideswipe or something here. Maybe Rise from the Wreck with a bunch of Self-Mill. It's going to be a solid value play. Should take that. Okay, now we have pick 4. The Gastel Raider's pretty good. 3 mana, 2/1 makes our opponent discard an instant or sorcery, usually a removal spell. And if we hit max speed, it's a menacing threat. Ooze Patrol is solid in this color pair, but I think Gastel Raider is just really, really good value up front. All right, definitely removal here between a Spinout and a Grim Bauble. I like that the Grim Bauble has synergy with Demonic Junker as an artifact sitting on our board, as well as, okay, I guess it doesn't synergize with Broodheart Engine, but it also puts like an artifact in our grave for the cards that care about the number of creatures and artifacts in grave, which there are some cards like that in the format. I feel like Grim Bauble does enough synergy stuff to take it over Spinout here, but that might blow up in our face. I mean, we only got 2 ways to blow up any creature, and they're both pretty expensive. We'll see. But I think Grim Bauble is really nice for sitting around on the board. And here's another one. Or Carrion Cruiser, which is really nice in the color pair as well. Another artifact to add to that affinity and a good self-mill graveyard recursion play. I think I'm just taking more of that efficient removal, though. Pick 7 Mutant Surveyors, fine. Another Rise from the Wreck could be fine in this deck with this Surveil stuff going with Wicker Folk and Broodheart Engine. Nothing super exciting for this deck. I'll go for the Rise from the Wreck. It's the funnest one. Pick 8, we can main deck a Broken Wings until we find better removal. There is nothing in this pack. Yeah, this pack is horrible. I hope this was not the pack with Broodheart Engine in it, because then somebody could have just like hate drafted it because this pack is so bad. I guess Aetherdraft gives us another artifact. Ah, I think that might have been the pack with Broodheart Engine in it. No! I mean, honestly, still doesn't look like the end of the world, because we still don't have anything big to reanimate. And we kind of had our eyes out here, because we're in Golgari, we have the engine. There just wasn't any of the big stuff. None of the big cycling creatures or anything like that. Been an awkward draft. The Streaking Oil Gorger. Man, yeah. I feel like we went for what seemed to be the strongest, most open color pair, and then still get a bunch of nonsense, really, out of the pod. Maybe pack 3 can help wrap this deck up, but here we get a spin out to start that off. Pack 3, pick 2. Ooze Patrol is cute with graveyard synergies, but I just think that Scurryfoot is generally better. It's just very generically powerful. Really easy to get it out before turn 4 and basically make it just 4 mana for a 3/3 and a 2/2. A great way to get a wide board state. I take the Scurryfoot super highly in this format right now. There's an Imperiosaur, 3 mana 5/4. That's got to be a pretty high pickup. Would be taking it over a spin out, but I've got 2 Bauble, spin out, Junker, Compactor. I think I can do that for the 3 mana 5/4. The thing is obviously just insanely huge. Now I can take a run over for 2 mana removal. We have to have a decently sized creature on the board, but we just took a 3 mana 5/4, so we've got some decently chunky creatures in the deck. Also could have taken the 1 mana -1/-1, but that one's like really narrow. I already have 2 Grim Baubles, so I'll just rely on those for the smaller creatures. Love this Ripclaw thing. I have 24 non-lands right now. It's probably a 17 land deck. We have a big 7 mana card. I'll drop a Wrangler. And every time we draft something, we can cut another card here. And then our deck will just be pre-built when we get into the deck building portion. Another spin out seems great. A second Omnivore is interesting again, just to make sure that the Fang Druid Summoner is nice and consistent. But I don't think I need to do that. I feel like the spin out's better than Momentum Breaker, just because we have a lot more control over what we're blowing up. Molt Tender is theoretically good in this archetype, but we haven't gotten any of the really powerful synergy pieces anyway, so I'm just going to take the hard removal. Okay. Another Broodheart Engine with nothing to reanimate. It is what it is. I guess if we can mill Demonic Junker, it's still going to be really good. I'm just going to take another one. Wickerfolk's probably better in this deck, but hey. I'm doing the thing. I'm trying to do the thing. Here's a Siphon Fuel. It's probably better than a Rise from the Wreck. Sure. It's 24 non-lands right now. 13 creatures? I can't really cut any creatures. Cut a... I guess another Rise from the Wreck. A Scrap Compactor. Pick 8s. Utter nonsense. Haunt the Network's pretty strong, but we can't really splash it. Man, we got the double Broodheart Engine deck. Could have had the triple Broodheart Engine deck, but I just do not remember seeing any good high mana value creatures in this pod whatsoever. There's just been like nothing to reanimate. None of the really high mana value vehicles that are any good either. Probably not playing Javelineer, but it is more likely than the Sideswipe because I've got some really good removal here, and the Javelineer is better than some of our other creatures, and we're on a pretty low creature count. They played Ooze Patrol there. Well, we got a double Broodheart Engine deck. No big card to reanimate off of the double Broodheart Engine. That's about as tragic as a draft can go when you're like, yeah, I mean, what we're doing is seemingly one of the most open color pairs. We've got good removal, we've got a good curve, but the specific synergy cards were just not in the draft pod. Just nobody opened them, it looks like. Or somebody was playing some weird, like, 5-color ramp deck or something and just ramping into the big stuff. Yeah, pretty tragic to not have the big stuff here. But what can you do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 creatures. This way, it's a little low, but probably fine, because I think our non-creature spells are just a lot better than our creatures. A lot better than our weakest creatures, at least. Yeah. Got some early surveilling with this, early surveilling with these, surveil there. I feel like I can cut a land and surveil towards the mana when I need it. 13 black, 13 green. Wow, so even split. Ah, but I'm going to have an odd number basics. I have to pick the more important color. Slightly black, I would say. Because I have turn 1 black plays. I guess I've got a turn 1 green play, but I've also got like all these baubles. The spinouts, I want that double black, but I can wait on spinout a little bit. I guess I have more early green plays than early black plays, right? Because I can wait on removal spells a tiny bit. But creatures I need to be playing on the turn. On the turn of their mana value. And I have a ton of 2 mana, 1 mana, and even a 3 mana creature here that's double green. So I'll actually go 8-7 in the other way. 8-7-1. Yeah, sure. Not loving this deck. It looks pretty average here. I mean, I've got a curve and a bunch of removal. This deck is not horrible. This deck could absolutely get a decent run here. Solid little 4-3. But it just doesn't have anything really spicy or really cool going for it, which is what I was really hoping for. Thanks to the Broodheart engine stuff that we pivoted onto. But we just didn't get the beefy stuff to go with the engines, so they're just going to be okay in here. Hopefully Demonic Junker can help us out. Milling those with the Broodheart engine and then reanimating them could lead to some quick early victories. So we'll see if we can get that little synergy going here and there, but I guess we'll see how it plays out as we hop into the gameplay and see how it does. All right, here we are on the draw for game 1. We have an early Gibberic Omnivore. Got a Grim Bauble for one of their cheap creatures. We need to go Omnivore into Ooze Patrol turn 4. Okay, I'm just going to bauble that before it draws the many cards. This also makes the Junker 6 mana instead of 7, which is pretty good. Playing against a blue-red deck. Blue-red has a lot of cycling synergies, and they've got a Vinwixit, so their engines are started, and they've got a 4 toughness blocker to stop our 3-2. If they get to max speed, we're going to be in a world of pain because they get to start drawing 2 cards every time they would draw a card. So 2 cards per turn, 2 cards every time they cycle, and so on from there. There's the stock up to find whatever they need in the top 5. Very excellent card draw spell. Just a dig through time for 3 mana. Okay, I can hold up spin out mana here. But I could just spin out Vinwixit, because if they hit max speed, it's going to be an issue and a half anyway. And this way I can get damage in this turn. This Ooze Patrol's kind of going to suck, though, since no creatures traded off. Okay, well, I can just replay the Omnivore instead, then. Since they bounced it. Oh, there we go. Perfectly mana efficient. Double Omnivore. That's going to be so awkward if we draw our card that searches for a vanilla creature and puts it in our hand. I guess it searches from the graveyard too, which helps. There's the Ether Siphon to start drawing an extra card each turn, and the Midnight Mangler to get on blocks here. So send in, take a trade for the Mangler, and then Ooze Patrol, so the Patrol's a little bigger. Then play a tapped Night Markets, so I can play an untapped land next turn and play the Junker. Land. Well, that's a tiny Ooze Patrol for 4 mana, but it also means we're not going to top deck those lands. What does this destroy? Destroy up to 1 target creature. Okay, and they're just going to broadside Barrage. They probably won't even have a creature next turn, sadly. Put a stop on my upkeep. If they don't play a creature here, I'll go ahead and Surveil with the Grim Bauble before my draw step, and they are not playing a creature. Rise from the Wreck. Mount vehicle, creature with no abilities. Sorry, creature, mount vehicle, creature with no abilities. So, a creature and a creature with no abilities right now. That's still a fine little draw too. I think I'll keep that and cast that this turn. Just a divination here. Draw another card from the Ether Siphon. It is popping off. Five mana up. Removal spell on the Omnivore. Still no creatures for Demonic Junker. Can double spell these two, or I can just haste an Oil Gorger. It feels better to double spell. Get the wider board state. It also plays around the counterspell here, making sure we actually have a creature if they have the 2 mana counterspell. Okay, those are awkward mills. At least they make the Ooze Patrol bigger, but milling the Broodheart engine makes me quite sad. It's like the world's most awkward matchup for Demonic Junker. There's just like removal spells. They're just going to draw 2 cards a turn and then 1-for-1 removal spell all of our stuff away. And eventually they'll be too far ahead in cards. Feels like their game plan here. Okay. Double bounce spell? Man, that's hilarious. Ether Siphon draw. The 0/8. Well, I found something to blow up with Junker, but I think it's better to get the Hasty Flyer down first. I'm gonna have an aneurysm. Here's the Gibberic Omnivore. Ether Siphon draws a card. Sabotage Strategist. And Midnight Mangler. Oh boy. So now they just get to siphon lock us here. Because we already have no onboard attacks. They're drawing 2 cards a turn, digging for removal. Here's the Broodheart engine. I'm gonna get the flyer here. I feel like this matchup is really good when they don't draw Ether Siphon and really bad when they do. Because like without this Ether Siphon, they would be like 6 or 7 cards less deep into their deck right now. Have half as much removal as they've played. And they're like 30 cards deep, which means it's quite likely this is the only Ether Siphon in their deck. Just the classic Phyrexian Arena plus 22 removal spells build. Forces out an instant speed removal spell. Or rips away a sorcery. Land. Well. They're down to 9 cards. They might mill out before they find a way to kill me. But again, we've been kind of fully stun locked here. So we're just going to stare at them until they mill as our best bet. I mean, a 5/5 trample is a big one if they ran out of removal. We know they have 2 basics in hand. Okay, maybe. Grim Bauble doesn't really do anything. I could post-combat Grim Bauble if they block Greenbelt Guardian with the 0/8. Give the whole board trample. Maybe get a tiny bit of damage in here. Oh, this is only -2/-2. It's 1 damage off from killing Kelorna. They have 7 cards left. 6 cards left. The Bastronaut. It's definitely too late. Bobble that one. Are we actually gonna combat damage them out? None of these cards are relevant? Just extreme levels of flood in the endgame from our opponent. Five damage on board. 7 damage on board. We'll allow that. If they respond with anything, I can try to see if I can get a Siphon Fuel kill. Okay, I can't get 7 damage dealt here. I can kill Kaelorna or kill the Midnight Mangler and trample for 2. I think I'd rather kill the Mangler, trample for 2. To get some damage there. Put them to 3. They draw a card, discard a card. They're down to 5 left. At this rate, even if we do find lethal, it's basically them milling. Yeah, they had the lightning strike too. Four cards left, 3 cards left. Build 4 or 5. Yeah, no, I was I was right initially. We tried to get that damage in, but yeah, they scooped to the mill there. 3 cards left in their deck. They had us pretty locked out of ever getting enough damage, but dug too far and did not have any ways to like shuffle their graveyard back into the library. So we still managed to win just by our opponent drawing too many cards, and I guess we are 1-0 with a pretty strange victory to start us off. Here we are for game 2, forced mulligan to start us off. Alright, we'll keep this 6-card hand on the draw. Luckily, it's all really cheap mana costs, which is very helpful. I like how Wickerfolk works with the Broodheart engine, but I like having the exhaust creatures to have some stuff to do when we hit higher mana in this hand. Because this way we have a 1-drop, a 2-drop. We have a 1-drop, 3 2-drops, and 3 4-drops, right? I activate Scurryfoot at 4 mana, I activate Guardian at 4 mana, I activate Broodheart engine at 4 mana. This is like a really, really good hand for a 6-card hand. It makes up for being down in cards by giving us additional stuff to do later. Playing against a Boros deck, and they start with the Glory Heath Lynx, which is way too big to run over. 2 mana, 2/3. It's a nasty stat line. Alright, I think I have to play to the board right now and start with the Guardian. Which should be easy enough to do, because next turn I can just play the engine. Still. But I can't really afford to block the Glory Heath Lynx, because any combat trick in the entire set would just kill both of my creatures. And keep the Lynx on the board. There's Gilded Goda. Yeah, this is really bad, because that means the Lynx is going to be drawing another card every turn, picking up a Plains. Yep. This is a very, very solid start for opponent. Can run over the Goda here, I suppose. That gives me something that actually affects the board to do with my mana early. Which does feel important against Boros. So I'm going to do that. And then next turn and onward, we're just going to keep exhausting cards. It's a 4/5 lifelink now. Oh my god. Alright, we're never out racing that, but I have a 5/5 blocker, so they're gonna need a removal spell here. Force them to have the removal here. I'm activating this right now because they're a red deck, and if I try to activate it during their turn and they have Lightning Strike at instant speed for 3 damage, they can kill the Guardian before the exhaust ability resolves, which they can't do if I just do that during my turn. Okay, they've got the 6 damage burn anyway. Which plays out the same way for us either way, because I would have just passed and they would have attacked and I would have activated their respawn with this and kill it, and we would not block. Try to block with a 3/3 and a 2/2, I guess. That crumbles to any combat trick or removal spell, so there's a lot that can go wrong trying the double block here. But I'm so low on life by now that my other option is to start chumping, which is also miserable. So I think we gotta try to make it happen. Yikes. Hazaret to crew the cloud cycle, or the sky cycle. We successfully stopped the Lynx from attacking, but now they're going to be at maximum speed for Hazaret really soon, and we have to deal with an indestructible 5/3, plus they can make one of their smaller creatures unblockable every turn. This is a horrible Broodheart engine. I'm going to have to play this and pick up a 2/2 or pick up nothing this turn. Taking 2 in the sky every turn, I'm at 8. They have threatening on-ground attacks without another block. Man, I think I just activate this. This way I still have the double block on Lynx, plus I have a block for the 4/1 Tyrox. Alright, yeah, the removal is pretty much game. Because I go to 2 life already. Yeah, no, that literally is game. I go to 2 and then I die to Outpace Oblivion. I guess I don't go to 2 if I chump. But then I have to chump. Dang. Four mana after this. It only picks up 1 creature right now anyway. Yeah, no, that's GG. Oof. Absolutely handled there. I think that was really just due to our opponent's card quality more than anything. They just had a much stronger hand. The Glory Heath Lynx. This card is savage. 2 mana, 2/3 lifelink. That 3 toughness, meaning that it wins the fight against almost every other 2 mana creature in the format, and it gains life the whole time it's doing it. Plus it saddles up to draw extra planes to make sure you keep hitting your land drops and get that 2/1 or 3/1 and so forth level of value. This card was astronomically good this game. I feel like this card must be one of the best uncommons in the format. That thing was sweet. Obviously, putting +1/+1 counters on a lifelink are also always going to be pretty nasty, as are mythic rare god cards. But the big MVP, the big surpriser here was the Glory Heath Lynx just being an insane uncommon there. All right, 1-1 heading into game 3. Here we are for game 3, unfortunately with another pretty forced mulligan. I am on the draw with 2 pretty guaranteed cheap removal spells. But the monocolored hand is just bad. The Rise from the Wreck is really bad this early in the game. I'm going to take the mulligan. Alright, we find a 2-color hand, ditch a 5-drop. I might night market for green with this hand so that I know I have double green on turn 3 for Imperiosaur. Hopefully our first draw is a land, and then I get to know exactly what I need to play night market as. If we draw a forest, we play it as a swamp. If we draw a swamp, we play it as a forest. But our first draw is another green spell, so I'm night marketing on green. I have to play it turn 1 so I know I can play 2 drops. And I'm choosing green so I know I can play Imperiosaur regardless of what land I draw. And it works out for us. We top deck the swamp, which means it would have been really bad for me if I played that on black. Then I would not have the guaranteed Imperiosaur coming up. Let's go Venom Sack-Lagac. That would be the card that I am most willing to trade into an opposing Venom Sack-Lagac. Mono green from our opponent so far. There's Loxodon Surveyor. Snap trade. Get that Death Touch off the board. Here's Imperiosaur now. Gibberick Omnivore from our opponent. That's it for now. Gastel Raider. Check out what's going on in their hand. Feels good. Solid draw. All creatures. That's awkward. Even the Boost Buggy's basically a creature they exhausted to make it a 4/3. The really big creatures too. Okay. It's going to be scary if they find the mana. Immediately top decks the mountain. I should not open my mouth. There's the Boost Buggy. There's the Greenbelt Guardian. And it is officially very scary. Got pretty chunky blocks here. Got the 2-for-1 from the Fang Druid Summoner as well. There's Boom Scholar. Their exhaustibility on the Boost Buggy is only 1 mana now. Our block is still really good on it. Sure, you can kill one of my creatures. Sure. Trade our 2/4 into the 4/3. Rise from the wreck. There's a mount, there's a creature. As soon as the Gibberick Omnivore dies, that Rise from the wreck is going to be really good. Picks up at least 3 cards. So we want to definitely play Gibberick Omnivore, maybe hold up a run over here. This thing turns into a 4/4 and gives the rest of their board trample. Oh, turns into a 5/5, gives the rest of the board trample. This turns into a 5/5 and can give the rest of the board trample every turn for a bunch of green mana. I think I'm running over here. It feels too bold to attack with Imperiosaur. If I attack with Imperiosaur, I could try to get them to double block and then run over, which is pretty good. But then they would block with like these two, and I don't get to run over the better cards. And that's if they block. If they don't block, then my blocks are just way worse. And that's an issue. I think we just run over the Greenbelt Guardian. Because while it does cost them mana to give the trample, that can give their board trample like every single turn versus just the one time, and they both turn into a 5/5 after they're exhausted anyway. So they're both just as big later. The Boom Scholar does make other exhaustibilities cheaper, but it's the only exhaustibility left if I kill the other card. And so they need to top deck more exhaustibilities to get any value from that, and by then they probably have more than enough mana anyway for any exhaustibilities that they do draw into. I think the pace of the game is going to be slow enough here. I can get a little greedy with the Greenbelt Guardian instead of the Ooze Patrol. See if some creatures die this turn, and then the Ooze Patrol gets to be even bigger. And then obviously we want to play Ooze Patrol before the Rise from the Wreck. Okay, that's a 4/3. They don't have the red mana for it this turn, though. So they do just pass. Okay. Make Guardian a 5/5 or play the Ooze Patrol here. I don't want to get that greedy. I feel like the wider board state is going to be worth it. Mill the spin out. You love to see it. Still waiting for Omnivore to die for Rise from the Wreck, ideally. Opponent passes through. Broodheart Engine is a big one. Could immediately pick up a Fang Druid Summoner. But I don't mind exhausting the Greenbelt Guardian this turn, getting at least one Surveil off of the engine before we choose what we want to do with it. And that could also have like an Ooze Patrol in the grave or something to reanimate instead. Send in the 4/3. Well, I'll try this. And see what trick they have. Fang Guardian? Sure. We still kill the Specialist. Surveil an Omnivore. Well, that into the grave, and then I just get to cast Rise from the Wreck right now. Because that is our vanilla creature. One creature card. If I take Fang Druid Summoner, I have to wait to cast it until one of the Omnivores dies again. But it is probably more stats than just the Guardian. It'll be really annoying and take the Summoner. There's their own Rise from the Wreck. That's funny. Alright. I will keep a spin out on top. Opponent says, oops. Wonder what that's about. So we spin out the Reach creature and just start poking them with a Wicker Folk, I guess? I like those both as draws. This is just gonna be an annoyingly long board stally game. Get our way towards max speed pretty quick. Is another Rise? Sure. Just killed the vanilla creature for free on that one, so that's fine. We are still definitely chipping in towards max speed here. Okay. We're doing fine. Very slightly ahead on board in terms of the creatures alone, and then I also have a Broodheart engine at whatever point that's going to be valuable. Another flyer? That's huge. Maximum speed. I like the gas guzzler here, so any blocks that don't look super favorable, I get to draw a card off of. And then the summoner for the bigger blocker, because I do think they have a solid attack next turn. So play the chunkier creature here. Instead of the flyer. Just hit for 1 less damage. Uh-oh. Velocitor is probably pretty good in a board stall. Give a vehicle +2/+0 trample. Yeah. I'm at 22. So it's like not the end of the world, but that's gonna be painful. Yeah, now I have to double block an 8 power creature, so I lose 2 creatures here no matter how I block it. Oh, I feel like the 2/3/2s are the least important creatures here. Even if one of them has Menace. And then I can sack one of them to draw a card and still get a kill on the Ironclad. I do have to not mill out. We might just mill out. This is going to be the slowest draft. Oh, let's go. That immediately changes things pretty drastically. Lifelinking flyer. Yeah, that's monumental. I'm gonna play the better blocker here again this turn, because now I'm tapping 2 of my creatures. If that ever dies, that's probably what we're reanimating with Broodheart Engine. Beast Rider Vanguard's a great mana sink. Keeps drawing more creatures off the top for that 5 mana. Saddle up Lagak. 4/1 Death Touch Trample. Or 4/4 Death Touch Trample. Oh, Death Touch Trample means blocking with a 2/1 Death Touch and a 4/4 is going to stop the same amount of damage. The question is, do we want to keep a Death Toucher as a blocker more or a 4/4 as a blocker more? I think they have enough 3/3s. I'd rather keep the 4/4. Do they have any other Surveyor-style cards in Grave? No. Grim Bubble. Grim Bubble's fine. I will keep the bubble. I think I'm actually blowing up the mana sink here. Look at the top 3, pick up a permanent. They pick up Specialist. That's not too threatening. It's another Wicker Folk. Oh yes, top deck Demonic Junker and then reanimate it later is going to be our win condition here. To really pull us ahead in the end. I hate that. I'm tempted to Broodheart Engine the lifelinking flyer, because that's just such a huge swing in the life totals every turn. Feels like the most important card. I don't have any 5 toughness cards, do I? I do not. Moves a 3/2 or a 1/3 flyer. I think a 3/2 is the choice here. I'm gonna have to stop milling once I'm at 10 cards. Alright, I'm at 10 cards. I need to stop self-milling. Okay. Blow up Greenbelt Guardian, probably. Although, again, Boom Scholar has similar issues. This thing only buffs mounts and vehicles, and they have no more on board. This is not a vehicle anymore. Oh no, I guess it still is. They can buff that. I think this is still just blowing up Greenbelt Guardian. Crew 2. Crew with that. I've got a 5/4, 4/4, 2/4, and 4/3. 5/4, 4/4, 2/4, 4/3. Take like 6 or 7. Yeah. Reach! Reach blocker off the top. That's clearly not good. I'm done drawing cards now. We'll reorder the top, though. Jaguar Broodheart Engine. Jaguar right now, trade off Junker next turn, and then Broodheart Engine the Junker to kill the Reach creature. Feels like the lineup. Their own Jaguar. Please just attack with anything so I can trade the Junker off. Maybe I should have just crewed attack with it to trade it off, but then I have to just shump attack into the 4/5. Might be where I'm at. Just attack with a solo 6/6 here, I guess. Just see what happens. I guess they could block with the Jaguar and another card, and I just kill the Jaguar. We just go Jaguar for Jaguar. All right, really happy to see them playing around some other trick here, so I actually do get a kill with Demonic Junker. This should be a wild swing in the board here in the end. Demonic Junker's redemption run continues. Actual MVP this time. That's a large one. Doesn't have reach though, does it? No. Three swings until lethal. Swing one. GG from opponent. They scoop them up. What a long game of Magic. Aetherdrift has been the slowest format in a long time for some of these games, which has been pretty wild, considering it's supposed to be the death race format. But hey, we're only 3 games in. We got a super long draft out of this one. We are 2-1 now, heading into game 4. Here we are on the plate for game number 5 with a forced mulligan here. We only have green sources, and our green spells are late game plays. All of our early game plays are black, which we don't have the sources for. Awkward, but our 6-card hand is very solid. Double Omnivore in the early game, the spin out for our removal, and the Broodheart engine to set up our draws from that point on. Even find a Grim Bubble for just more cheap plays. Playing against blue-black, there is the Deathless Pilot, which annoyingly can just come back from the grave, but I think it's still good to get it out of the way with the Bauble, because it costs 4 mana to put it back to their hand, so 6 mana to get it back on the board. So, in order to actually get some damage in with these cheap little 3/2s, we're going to have to clear that path. It's way better to trade a Grim Bauble into that than an Omnivore. Unfortunately, our opponent has their own Grim Bauble to clear out one of the Omnivores, but the other one is still here, jamming them down to 14. Now we'll run out the Broodheart engine. They've got the 4 mana now, but Memory Guardian is the play. We'll Surveil 1, ditch the forest, hoping to find the swamp instead. We do not. We find an Ooze Patrol, which is awkward. I'm not going to 2-for-1 myself to kill Memory Guardian. I can wait on the black source. There's Hole Drifter. Gross. A 3-for-1. It's a draw 2 plus a vehicle they can crew to trade off into our 3/2. If nothing else. Let's Bauble Surveil here to the swamp if we can. Scurryfoot and the swamp. I will take both of those. The awkward thing about the swamp here is that even if I spin out right now, they can just crew the Hole Drifter and still block Omnivores, so I don't really want to make that attack. I probably still spin out main phase though, right? Because there are blue decks that are just doing it while they're tapped out. Yeah, I probably do. And there's like always a chance they just forget they can crew. It's pretty unlikely, but possible. Yeah, okay, go for the crew, sure. And pass the turn. I guess if I got to a position where I had triple black, I could blow up the flyer and bobble the Hole Drifter. But really, trading anything into a Hole Drifter ends up feeling like a pretty bad deal. Oh my god. Alright, we're bobbling the merfolk to stop their draw 5 million cards spell. And passing from there. Opponent has so much gas in the tank here because of all this card draw. Even their Ranger's Refueler is going to draw more cards, especially if they play more exhaust creatures. Then that thing will absolutely pop off. Yep, activate Refueler, draw a card. Oil Gorger. It's a pretty bad draw right now because I don't have mana for it, and it wouldn't be the worst reanimate. I mean, it's not great against Hole Drifter. We just go for the mill on that. It's going to be an activate Scurryfoot turn or play Ooze Patrol. I think activate Scurryfoot seems fine. Another Hole Drifter. Yep. Shall this be our third 20+ minute long game? Find out soon. Spin out's decent. Don't really have anything to spin out right now. Certainly not just milling that card, though. There's their own spin out on the Ooze Patrol. We can Brood Heart Engine that. That's probably better than the Flyer at this point as something to reanimate. I'm just going to be like an 8/8 minimum because the engine will be in our graveyard for it. It's a pretty full grip. I'm happy to play Raider because it also plays out efficiently with the Gas Guzzler. Sure. It's annoying, but pretty fine. Trade 1 for 1 into the removal, basically. With our opponent's deck being chock full of card draw like the double Hole Drifter and the Ranger's Refueler, though, if we keep ending up in positions where we trade our cards off 1 for 1, our opponent will come ahead in the long game. It's just going to take quite a while for them to then kill us from that point. But that's currently where the game is headed. It is pulling away from us slowly. And now very quickly. Honestly, I have died to this card a lot, but the one thing that I do like about it is it lets me concede if I want to. Since I am recording a video, I will go ahead and not concede, but we basically lost the game now. They can chump block anytime I ever attack and make that even bigger and make us lose a life. But, yeah. Again, similarly, as I was saying, where it's like, well, now I can concede. Now we're losing the game a lot faster, at least. Even if I kill that, because they get to keep all the million insects off of it. I will go ahead and kill it here. But then I don't have the mana for anything else. I really need blocks up, and I don't have good attacks into the 4/4. So we're just going to get jammed by double Hole Drifter every turn now, since they can crew it with insects, which is a pretty nasty image. Insects flying the gigantic vehicle. Turn over turn till we die. 3-turn clock. I'm going to have to spin out a Hole Drifter, which is really not where I wanted to be. But Achik has just put us too far behind. In a position that we were already behind. But that kind of sealed the deal here. Forced us into some pretty bad trades. This can pick up a lot of cards, but I just don't have mana to play around with that right now. Because I won't have the mana to recast all the cards. Deathless Pilot has finally returned. I am pretty happy with our early game choice to just bobble that thing, because it killed it for like 10, 11, 12 turns at this point. Alright, spin out a Hole Drifter and we're 3 turns from dead. Oh, send in the whole board. Alright, we're probably dead faster then. Oh yeah, this thing's gonna be 5 million power, so I have to chump that. This might be dead right now. No, I go to 2 life. It's super close. Super dead on board. So we are 2-2, moving on to game 5. Another pretty self-explanatory game there. Our opponent just played a lot of card draw over the course of the long game to get very ahead. Be able to cast a lot more spells than we cast throughout the game and have a much wider board thanks to that. We have mulliganed a few times today as well, so we might have even started down a card on a mull to 6 there. I don't remember. But I know we've mulled at least 2 of these games. I don't know if that was one of them. Anyway, even with a 7-card hand, had we not had one, they would probably be ahead in cards by the end of that. They had a lot of good card advantage there. So 2-2, heading into game number 5. And here we are on the play with a solid opener. Do gotta draw some lands early, but we're locked in for an Omnivore and a Grim Bauble, if nothing else. Opponent starts with Scurryfoot. I will definitely Grim Bauble that, but I'll play the Omnivore first. Our first top deck is very bad. We find a 5-mana spell. And it's probably the most filler top-end card in our deck. Oof. The Rocketeer Boost Buggy. That's going to be a rough time for me. Say crew an attack, make a treasure every turn. Might have to just play another Omnivore then at this rate. No, I still have to bauble the Scurryfoot because if they don't have a good follow-up play, next turn they can just go land, crew boost buggy, attack, get a treasure, use the treasure on Scurryfoot. So if they are going to play another creature and crew the boost buggy, we are letting them get that treasure value here now. But now we make sure the Scurryfoot does not get 2 creatures of value. But that just again goes to show how impressive Stampeding Scurryfoot is, where it feels like the best play is to spend your removal on it. That means it is a 1-mana spell that drew a removal spell from us, which is a really good deal. Like either if it gets killed early, that's a good deal, or if it sticks around till late and it makes multiple creatures, that's also a good deal. Card is kind of just good no matter what. Fantastic reason to play green. Cowcatcher Specialist. It's going to be an insta-trade into the boost buggy. Stop them from getting more treasures here. So we are both stuck on lands. Oh no, 1-mana removal? Yeah. That's nasty. That's an insanely efficient hand over there. Great little Gruul aggro deck. We remain missing land drops. We gotta be fully on the defensive at this point. I'll trade into the Specialist because it can turn into a 4/3 later. But the Catalyzer can't get any bigger, so any creature I play can trade into the Catalyzer. Now, Catalyzer is adding double red for them now, but they only have 2 cards left in their hand, and with the mana curve we've seen so far, they're unlikely to be running a lot of expensive cards in there. But they could have a 6-drop in hand that would have been hard to cast otherwise, but even if they had that, because they have another boost buggy here, they could have just crewed that, attacked with it, and then cast the 6-drop even without top decking a land. And if they did top deck a land, then they could easily do it. Without the Catalyzer. Duretti. Sack a treasure, bring back a boost buggy. That's pretty decent. But the Ooze Patrol still holding things off here, it looks like. Okay. We have hit that 5th land, which is really important. And this hand does show how important it is to get your max speed going early. Our opponent's at 15, we've hit them a few times, but we never started our engines. So the early game start your engines cards are just so helpful towards making sure that this max speed ability is a lot more consistent, because at this point, it's going to be a really long time till max speed, even if I play that right now. So I think it's better to just play the better blocker of the Alacrian Jaguar. The top deck is the Crash and Burn removal spell for the 6/6, so we would be basically dead if I played the Oil Gorger and attacked with it, so I'm pretty happy with the choice of line. But the blocks here are not great. They can still exhaust a boost buggy and have a 4/3 attacker here and force the trade, because the alternative is to go down to 2 life. They get to attack with Duretti and boost buggy right now. Which is super gross. Does Duretti trigger every time he attacks too? Enters or attacks. So the Duretti boost buggy combo is probably one of the scariest things you can do with Duretti in this format, because you get the treasure for attacking with the boost buggy, then you just attack with it next turn and sack the treasure to bring back the boost buggy anyway. It's gonna be gross. So now I really want to like top deck a swamp to blow up Duretti, but even in that case, they have 7 power to hit me with between Catalyzer and the other boost buggy. Game feels pretty over, and we did not even hit the second swamp, which means we are wildly dead. Because now I just play a single 3/3. And trade into a boost buggy, but Duretti's just going to immediately bring the other one back and hit me for 5 between Duretti and Catalyzer. Yeah, no, this Wombo combo really gets us. It's a pretty fire combo. But it's a very over game of Magic. And we'll move on. That is 2 and 3 to end today's draft. A little bit of a rough one. But we had a solid start to this format. 7-win sealed run, 6-win draft last time. So got to get our bad luck in a little clump here. This draft, kind of just the draft itself went pretty wrong here. I don't think there's a whole ton we could have done during that gameplay other than show up with a better deck or draw a little bit better, which is obviously easier to do when your deck is a little bit better. I don't think this deck is completely horrific, but it's very mediocre, and the reason is that we did draft an open color pair, draft an open archetype. We got great removal like double spin out, double grim bauble, run over. We got some really, really solid cards in terms of the creatures as well. I like the Wicker Folks a lot. The Imperiosaur, the Gastel Raider, obviously pretty great. Scurryfoot's awesome. The Fang Druid Summoner with the double Omnivore played really well. We've got some really solid creatures as well. The issue is that we really didn't hit a lot of the really good synergy pieces for this archetype. We hit the 2 Broodheart engines with almost nothing to reanimate, so the engines were pretty big underperformers. We did get to use them with Demonic Junker, which was pretty good. But had we just had a few of the really expensive cycling creatures, even just a couple Ketrodons, that would have been super helpful. The 6-mana 6/6 gain for when they enter cards would have been really great. And then we could cut some of the less synergistic cards like the Jaguar, the Oil Gorger, just some random stuff like that for some better cards. I mean, we only really needed to cut just like 3 cards here, I think, to make this deck really powerful. Like if we could cut these 3 for just 3 really big cycling creatures, I think this deck would have been really strong. But these cards were, I mean, Oil Gorger did put in a lot of work in 1 or 2 of those games, but overall, we had some more filler, more dirtly cards. Maybe the Omnivore summoner thing wasn't quite worth it either, because the Omnivores were kind of filler too. I don't know. I don't think there's any like egregiously bad cards in here. But again, it's just lacking a little bit of that like super powerful synergy combos that we've seen from a lot of the other decks that are destroying us here, like that Deretti deck, the huge synergy with the boom pile and stuff like that. We did do huge synergy things in one game, playing 2 Demonic Junkers in a row thanks to reanimating them, but there's just not enough good stuff to go with the Broodheart engines. So this deck might have even been better just playing 2 more filler creatures, like cut the 2 Broodheart engines for like a Broken Wings and a 2-drop Vanguard, but then again, we're cutting these for 2 more pretty filler creatures and still having very similar issues in all 3 of the games that we lost here. So yeah, again, taking another look at it, it actually looks even better than I thought during the gameplay. I think it played out worse than it looks, but it does have those issues where just could not open the cool big cycling cards to pop off with those synergy signpost uncommons, so we're just relying a little too hard on raw power with some slightly smaller creatures throughout the deck. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed and you're interested in seeing some more like it, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in the recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel, link in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.